Good morning to everyone, and again, thank you to SteelOrbis to give me the opportunity to do this presentation. It's a good exercise even for me to do it every 6 months. So we're going to go for, as usual, the presentation title is Steel Long Products Market, and the contents will be a bit of microeconomics. I will run quick on that because obviously with a fantastic presentation we had before from Mr. Karpovitz, that's going to be quick. Next one, it will be steel industry overview, then long products, rebar market, international price situation, and finally I will try to, after this 20 minutes presentation, I will try to put all pieces together and say something that makes sense with all the information we have had in this summary and outlook part. So in terms of economy, and according to, this is the forecast that the IMF did in July this year, and according on with that, apparently the economy in 2016 first 2 quarters, it grew a bit more than expected, especially in emerging markets. Not in advanced economy. In advanced economy, apparently was in line with expectation. I said this forecast was launched in July, and at that time it was very recent the Brexit. So this forecast it shows a little bit. If we see the world output, they're expecting they revise it down 0.1 points to 3.1 for 2016 and 3.4. As I said, there was a week probably after the Brexit. After that, we are seeing that Brexit probably is more a political thing than an economic thing because things look pretty going on in European economy. So that's the outlook, and after this revise, the revision in July, what they did is that they worsened a little bit the outlook for advanced economies. And we see that if we take advanced economies, we see that they revised 0.1 down for 16 and 0.2 down for 17. And they improve a little bit in emerging economies because they believe that probably China, Brazil, and Russia, they can do better than the previous forecast. So we go now to the next one, steel industry overview. And this is the general, not only long products, but all steel business together. What we see is that the final data that we got for 2015, they confirm what it was expected. And it was even worse, that the steel consumption in the world stopped its growth in 2015. So it was the end of a long growing period, and that was in 2015, and the total consumption of steel in the world was 1.5 billion tons. Well, obviously, we've been said 1,000 times that what was the reason? The slowdown in China. What we expect, or what this is the forecast of world steel, what we expect for 2016 is demand in, or what they were expecting, forecasting was demand still going down in 16.8. At this point in time, it looks like maybe we're going to be like flat even. So the demand in 2016 is going to be very similar to what it was in 2015. Reasons has been mentioned before. The stimulus plan in China that created an extra demand in 2016, and we are seeing that at the end of this fourth quarter, things in Russia are looking a bit better. So consumption demand in Russia is a bit better than expected. So that's probably will help to again achieve this stabilization of consumption in 2016. This is Again, continuing in steel industry as a whole, this is the world steel production in July 2016. And if we take the figures, it was a bit higher than compared with 15. Total was 133.7 metric tons. And here, I think what is interesting is to see the split of that. The split of that is that production in China was up 2.6%. In India was up 8.1%. And the rest of Asia, Japan was flat, and South Korea was up 1.5%. On the other hand, Europe clearly down. A lot of restructuring has been happening in Europe, reduction of production, plants made idle. So we see the numbers here in Germany down by 6.1%, UK down 27.3%. Obviously, all the Tata issue is the one that caused this thing, and that's what is Europe. In America, in US down 2.2%, and in Brazil, due to obviously the situation of the market there, production went down in July compared with 2015, went down 6%. There is one graph that I think is good that we check from time to time in this utilization. And I always draw this line in the 80% because 80% is set. That is the point where a mill, a steel factory becomes profitable. So it's always good to see where we are in terms of utilization. And we see that utilization, it came, well, to the lowest at the end of 15, and went up the second quarter of the year with that period where we had this new pricing and better pricing. All factors came back to or increased production, but lately in July is showing again that it's going down. So we are far away on what it needs to be a point of profit sustainability of the business. I say here that just a few shots in terms of what is happening in the capacity changes in China. There are, and probably our next speaker will be able to give more information on that. There are these directives to improve efficiency and place environmental inspections that started in June. This will continue for October. There are some analysts that they forecast that will force a drop in production. Here, sorry, there's a wrong number here. Is production expected 789 million tons. There's a zero that shouldn't be there. And they said it may well come down to 760 million tons in October 2016. But this is, as I said, is the forecast of some analysts that should be proof. In Europe and America, restructuring actions are continuing. We have seen a lot of that in Europe. They are continuing. More is going to come. And what I say at the end is that at the end, investors, well, I think it was mentioned, not specifically, but in the former presentation, steel sector needs to get investors back in track. I mean, the sector is not attractive now to investors or lenders. So, and the only way that we can do that is to prove that our businesses are sustainable and are profitable. So we need to do that. Okay, let's go to long products. Long products, well, the picture is similar. We see that in 2015, we got to a plateau. Consumption of long products very similar to the one in 2014. Again, same reason, a slowdown in the construction market in China that created that result. If we split it by region, long products, 73% of total consumption is in Asia. So obviously what happens in Asia is affects 0.75 to the market. And of that, 53, this 160 million tons is 53%, and this is China. What I've done here is to see what's happening in the market. This is, we are worse, we are getting worse, or we are getting better. This is the yellow column is second quarter growth year to year. So compared to second quarter, second half of 2015 compared to second half of 2014, and the green is first half of 2016 yearly compared with first half of 2015. And what we see is clearly in the second half, the yellow column, the world consumption went down 7%. 7 points, with a clear effect of Chinese going down 12%, but also CIS going down 8%. The only areas where we still had a positive market was in Europe and Turkey. If we at the side we got the green, so we see that in the first quarter the world went down 2%. So in a sense, the drop is slowing down. We are more close to stabilization. Why is that? Well, basically because in China the drop was not so big, and also because in Turkey there was first half the consumption of long products accelerated. Specifically, as we go to the rebar market, it's obviously the pattern is similar. Consumption in 2015 was affected by the Chinese slowdown. Total 349 million tons of consumption. Very similar pattern in terms of split by region. 75% is Asia, 56% is China. And here I did the same exercise, and what we see here is that in the second half of 2015, we went down 5 points, minus 5%, and total world, and also that drop, the green column is for the first half of 2016 is minus 3%. So in a sense, the drop is slowing down. We are stabilizing. In terms of market, here, China, probably due to this infrastructure plans that started in the first half of 2016, we see that the drop recovered from minus 7% to minus 2% in the first half. Here, the big the region that was more causing the drop was CIS. They went down minus 18% in the first half, and then Europe and Turkey kept on track of a kind of recovery. I put after wire rod because also wire rod, as you go to different sectors, using sectors, the pattern may be a bit different, and here the world from minus 5 in the second half to minus 4 in the first half of 2016. North America was the one that changed from positive to negative in terms of wire rod consumption. Probably different reasons. Industry is suffering a bit. Industrial production, we see consistently that PMIs of industry in US are not the best ones. So probably industry is slowing down a little bit in US. And clearly the CIS was in wire rod was the one losing a lot of demand. Middle East also causing the drop of the number. And this is a slide that obviously we have to, and it's a continuation of what we are seeing in all the presentations. Overcapacity is the problem to be tackled. And what I do here is I split, I compare consumption against capacity, and I split it on the different markets. And what we see here clearly is, well, first the whole world has got an overcapacity. The consumption was 349, this is for rebars, million tons, capacity is 358. So this overcapacity as a whole. And then the regions in red, the regions that have overcapacity themselves, the first one is China. For 2015, consumption was 197 million tons, and capacity was 210. And then the next one, CIS, 11 million tons consumption, 14 million tons capacity. Europe, as I said, with a lot of restructuring, but still there's overcapacity there, 31 million tons against 22 consumption. And in Turkey, 10 million tons consumption for rebars, about, and 17 million tons of capacity. Obviously, the rest of the world, North America is now in a good balance, more consumption than capacity in terms of rebars, and in the rest of the world, obviously, is the same. Okay, if now we have a look at the price situation, well, here you got the graph on what's been happening with the price of rebars, wire rod, and billets for the last more than 10 years. And well, if we look at the right of the graph, we'll see what's going on in the last 2 years. Obviously, we see the huge drop that we had starting in 14 and the last part of 2014, and ended to in 2015, at the end of 2015, for all products. More interesting probably is this one. Here we compare rebars with the scrap. So this is the columns, and then the line is the spread. Basically is obviously a measure of the margin that the mills are getting. And what we see here is that the margins has been consistently going down even before the peak in 2008. Margins, if we take as an example, 2006 was $255, and 13, 14, 15, it was a continuous drop of margins to the minimum of 155 at the end of last year. Obviously, at that point, well, we saw what happened: huge losses everywhere in the industry, and I guess I cannot see that going down there again. I mean, 155 is a spread that is absolutely unsustainable. That recovered to 175. Now we went through a point a bit higher than that, so we have gone back a little bit. But if we see the historic, we understand that this is still not. We believe that this is to make the industry sustainable. This is still not enough. We need a better spread than $175 as an industry. Okay, so trying to put all together in 4 shots. First, in terms of economy, what we see is that, and I think it's been also the conclusion that of the speaker before, Mr. Karlovitz, is that we are not that bad. I mean, it's not that activity is going to grow, it's going to boom, but in advanced economies, well, we are growing. We keep growing. USA and Europe, we keep growing. And what it appears to be is that, obviously, a bit depending on what's happening in China, but the emerging economies, developing countries are doing a bit better than expected and will grow in the future. Brexit, until now, it doesn't appear to be a big problem in terms, obviously, that we believe that if any effect will have an effect in Europe, and until now we see more a political thing. We see all players in this issue, to be very, very careful in terms of getting it in place, having the less harm possible into the economies. So that's what we see. So that's why we believe that that's going to be more a political thing that anything else. In terms, second shot, in terms of steel production, well, we see the drop in 2015. We expect a little bit of a forecast of a little drop. I think it's going to be stability for 2016. But what is obviously accepted everywhere now is that what we are facing is an excess of capacity. That creates obviously an excess of supply. We see also a number of trade actions that keep growing. I mean, you have a trade action almost now every week, everywhere. Being a lawyer now is a good thing. I mean, we are making, I guess, a lot of money. But what I see is that what I say. Obviously I'm from a mill. It's purely survival instinct. I mean, the mills, we get all the key on having a decent profitability is our domestic markets. I mean, you don't get your profitability exporting to the other part of the world. So, in a sense, it's, as I said, it's like a survival instinct, trying to protect your domestic market, because if not, you are dead. As said, steel sector needs to recover interest from investors. Output level is a problem to be tackled. And overcapacity, we know where overcapacity is, because it's something very physical. It's not spiritual or anything like that. It's physical. We know where the big factories are. So that's the problem that needs to be tackled. Until we don't get to the right balance, we're not going to show that we are a sustainable and profitable company, and investors will just try to avoid it. But just on the positive, and this is the last shot, I think that restructuring is happening. I mean, at least what I'm seeing in Europe, restructuring is happening, physically happening. We see, obviously our headquarters are in Spain. We see in Spain factories stopped. In Europe, I mean, assets being sold from here to there. So there's a real restructuring happening. So what I say in the last shop is that all that are signs that we have passed, I believe, the lowest part of the cycle. We are on the way up. So, and the time it will take to get back to more reasonable business environment will depend exclusively on how quick these restructuring actions are taken. And that's all. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Kim. Very nice presentation. As you said, it's great to be a lawyer these days. I wish the law firms were publicly traded, so we could all have invested in them. We had the insider information when the steel industry goes down.
Excess of money they have, yeah.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Kim Marti from the floor? So I guess there's one question over there. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Marti, you know, I'm here.
Yeah.
You know, recently there's an anti-dumping and countervailing duty petition. It's for Turkey, Japan, and Taiwan. So if these countries will not import to US, who do you think will import? Spain, maybe?
Yeah, but that's one option. Well, first, I think the anti-dumping is okay. It's got a process, yeah, and we'll have to see what happens, because the process is for the next few months. I guess that nothing is going to change for the next few months. Then after the result, well, in Spain, obviously we still have, but not only in Spain. I think in Europe, there are, especially in Southern Europe, there are still a few countries that we have an extra an extra tonnage to export, and that would be a nice market. But what I have to say also is that for now, for us, or I think in general for the producers in Southern Europe, it all depends also on the price. So if there's a good opportunity, okay, we can take it, but not only for the tons. We need a certain price level, yeah.
Mr. Weissel, just a second.
Very good presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're a main producer in England, and with the Brexit, I just wanted to know, what do you think will change, if anything?
We are still discussing that. No, look, I would say that the only fear, or because for the country itself, or for the industry in general, this is good. We have seen a depreciation of the currency, and that always helps. The only fear or worry that we have is what's going to happen with London, because obviously at this point in time, our mill there is very busy, but it's busy because London is busy. So what happens if at a point investors, that is not, okay, it's not really happening yet, and we don't know if it's going to happen. What happens if investors suddenly they stop going to London? What we believe is that London itself is like a wall on itself, and it's got the strength enough to say, no, we are here to survive. I mean, there are talks about the financial center of Europe going away from London. I mean, London is really the financial center of Europe, and it's going to remain like that. Or maybe with different currency, whatever. But I don't think London will allow or will suicide itself. If London continues all right, I think for long product business, it's going to be good.
How about the trade agreements? Do you think that it will affect what's coming in and coming out of England?
I think that the British, they will take care of not being really affected with that. I mean, British people, they're not stupid. Well, I think. You're laughing, maybe you think different, but.
Okay, one last question, maybe.
Mr. Marti, European Union is China is European Union's second largest trade partner after United States. So my question is, do you think European Union is likely to give a green light to market economy status for China? And if it happens, wouldn't this cause a serious degradation, fall down of its domestic steel industries to a state like similar, for example, of the steel industry in the UK, or even worse? Do you think is this a cliff edge situation from the European Union has no choice but to take a backward step?
What I think is, on that sense, I think that in Europe, Europe as a Europe is we are a young structure, yeah, and I think we are learning, and we are showing that in the last few months, yeah. When we need, obviously, we now have a sense of what needs to be protected in Europe, what we need to defend, because obviously there's. If we talk about the steel industry, there are a lot of jobs involved, there's a lot of money involved. So I think, it's just what I think, that in case that comes, and we have to enter into a process of, for whatever reason, discuss with, about giving China the status of market economy, obviously we'll have to talk on which conditions, because and I think we are proving that, because, well, in UK there's an anti-dumping now against Chinese rebars. In Europe in general, we are working now very easily on establishing anti-dumping petitions. So there is now, maybe it's recent in the last years, but there is a sentiment of we as Europeans as a whole, we need to do something sometimes, because it looked like more people in Brussels doing nothing. I think now there's a sentiment that, yeah, we need to do, and that would be the case. It's my opinion, but I think that would be the case.
Thank you very much. Oh, one more question. Okay.
I will be short, if possible. Actually, two questions. One is, when is your prediction that oversupply will be stopped, if moving the direction you showed it? How much will it take up? And another thing, wouldn't cause the same factor like we have in China, that, those ghost mills, especially in, Eastern or South of Europe, will raise back and we'll have the oversupply or overcapacity in the European Union?
I think, I mean, I asked the second question. I think that the Europe overcapacity is serious problem, because if you overcapacity creates non-profitability and things need to be tackled. If you are talking about Eastern Europe, outside the European Union, if there is a problem, we'll face it. I mean, anti-dumping, why not? So that's as simple as that. Then the first question, overcapacity, I think depends. Depends on the region. In Europe, it's clear there is a financial issue. I mean, nobody supports you if you got an excess of capacity that gets you into a non-profitable territory. You got no support, financial support. So it's just a financial issue, and I think in Europe that's going to be resolved quick. Other regions, that I don't know, but I think in general we will get out of this in the next 2 or 3 years. Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed. Very straightforward answers, so there were many questions. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, you can.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.